Attention podcast listener, we've got an exciting new podcast coming just for patrons of patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
Talking Futurama Season 2 Part 1 has begun exclusively for our $5 and up patrons on the Talking Simpsons Network. That's the first 10 episodes of Futurama coming to you once a week.
So just sign up for $5 a month at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons, and you'll get Talking Futurama Season 2 and all of our limited miniseries, including the entirety of Talking Futurama Season 1. That's 13 episodes.
That is patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. Now please enjoy the rest of this podcast.
Cartoons from present in the past. Every week will be an animated bash. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! Maybe a short but mostly shows. We'll talk, we'll analyze, exploring as we go. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to What a Cartoon, where we take our milk neat. I'm your host, Guru Gum Chewer, Bob Mackey, and this is an audio exploration of every cartoon ever. Who is here with me today?
Hey, it's Henry Gilbert, part-time Yajirobe cosplayer.
And who do we have on the line?
You have Son Shivam here to join you to talk about Dragon Ball.
Exactly, and today's podcast is all about Dragon Ball, and the episode is He's Here, the Mighty Foe Giran. Yes, so finally we're digging into Dragon Ball, and our guest today is Shivam Bhatt, who you might have heard on Talking Simpsons a few times. Hello, Shivam.
How's it going, guys? Thank you so much for having me. This is like literally my favorite anime of all time.
Yeah.
So I'm so stoked.
I think you pointed a digital finger in our faces and said, "You better have me on if you do Dragon Ball."
There were going to be words, my friends. There were going to be words.
Well, unfortunately, one of our top patrons, we were going to get to Dragon Ball one of these days, but this was chosen by one of our premium Patreon subscribers at the $50 level. They go by simply L, and they wanted us to do Dragon Ball specifically this episode. And here's why. To quote L, "To me, what makes Dragon Ball so special and different from Dragon Ball Z are the World Martial Arts Tournaments. Yes, the show is more kiddie and comedic than DBZ, but these tournaments show that Dragon Ball was not skimping in the action department. These tournaments served as wonderful checkpoints for Goku and his friends to test their skills in between their many adventures searching for Dragon Balls. They allow for so much variety in one-on-one fights due to the nature of the tournament itself. Opponents of completely different skill levels could be matched up against one another. Friends could fight friends, and the stakes were usually lower than the life or death situations found in DBZ. Not to mention that the rules could provide for some very interesting victories and defeats." I thank L for picking this, and he wanted to also do it because he said, quote, "The tournament announcer is one of the best characters in the entire series."
He shows up several times.
I love that guy. Him and his bleached blonde pompadour. He's so fun.
He is so also just completely resilient to all of this ridiculousness. Like,
Yet still consistently shocked by it all.
Yeah, he's like, what? This guy, he exploded the whole world. What?
How are we going to do this without a stage?
I mean, yeah, long overdue. I am going to insist on the same rule we do with our Gundam podcast, though, at the start here, of just like to prevent this from being 4 hours long. We will stay pretty much strictly to Dragon Ball Classic as it is defined in anime naming conventions. Nothing post Dragon Ball Z conversation here, if we can help it.
But when you get to that episode, I got a lot to say there too.
Okay, no, we will. I guess we all have our own histories with Dragon Ball. I guess I'd like to hear Shivam's first.
Oh yes.
Actually.
So, Dragon Ball, like many of us who grew up here in the States, my first encounter with it was on like an after-school cartoon in the 90s. There was this era where like somehow Ronin Warriors showed up on TV, and Ronin Warriors was like the vanguard of bringing anime to like mainstream anime that we knew was from Japan anime to America. And Ronin Warriors was followed by Sailor Moon and also Dragon Ball. And I grew up in a very Asian-heavy area in America, in the San Francisco Bay Area. And in my school, there were a lot of kids who would be like passing around tapes of like Hong Kong imported third generation copies of Cantonese dubbed episodes of anime. And I used to tutor kids in summer school to help them through calculus, and they would pay me in tapes. And so I watched a whole lot of unsubtitled or dubbed into Chinese episodes of Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT, all of that. And I became totally hooked on this completely. It was bizarre because that was before I knew what the Journey to the West was. So for me, this was literally the most Hindu show I'd ever seen in my life.
Oh.
Well, I mean, think about it. The hero, Son Goku, right? He's got a tail. He's floating around on this cloud. He's got the staff. Now, obviously, that's, Sun Wukong. But for me, that's like straight up just Hanuman from the Ramayana, the monkey god. He turned into this giant monkey with the moon. He's got, all of these like kind of weird hallmarks were there for my cultural understanding of shows. But I was like 15, so I was also just watching fireballs and like just really crazy like fights like you would never see on American TV before, and just persistence of storyline that G.I. Joe didn't give you. It blew my mind that every week I had a show that built off of last week.
Well, yeah, the Pan-Asian influence you talk about, like it's especially in the first half of Dragon Ball, like is even more noticeable before they start going into outer space. Like the places they go, like you're like, oh, this is kind of China here, and then these are it's more of like an Indian area, and then this is more from Japan. Like it's a really interesting just like world he builds out of so many different cultures.
When you look at like Piccolo, for instance, the first time he shows up, it's this green balding man who's obviously a jade Buddha. He's got a turban on, the whole thing. And I'm like, wow, this is just, I've never seen a show take so much influence from like the entire panoply of Asian cultures the way you see like in America. You're like, oh, look, that's obviously a Jesus symbol, or like allusions from Western culture that you see all the time. I'd never seen that from the other side, and it was just like kind of mind-blowing.
So I definitely was watching Dragon Ball Z when it started airing on Toonami, but my experience with the first chunk of Dragon Ball actually did kind of happen at the same time, because I was reading in the magazines about Dragon Ball being this great thing. And so one of my local video stores, I want to say Hollywood Video, they actually did have the tape version of the Curse of the Blood Rubies movie. That is a movie set during the first 13 episodes or 20 chapters of Dragon Ball. Though the American version of it cut in, to make it over an hour, they cut in stuff from the second episode. So it was really weird. And I also could tell stuff got cut out. But hearing about all the action that was Dragon Ball Z and seeing a silly adventure of helping a little girl fight a giant guy who steals blood rubies, like the goofy adventure of it, that confused me. I didn't understand it. And I also was watching it at like 14, 15. So I was like, hey, I'm a big boy. I want to see big fights and crazy. I want to see the crazy battles. Then in my 20s, when it started getting more available, I was watching more of classic Dragon Ball, but I really got into the comics in the last 5 years and just read the full thing. And I just reread all the Dragon Ball chapters and up to the Frieza arc in Z. And so I really think Akira Toriyama is like one of the biggest geniuses in comic creators ever. Like it's
hands down.
I associate this with mild trauma because when it was airing syndicated, so when the first 13 episodes were airing syndicated, like in the mid 90s, like 95, I'm guessing. You did the history on this one, Henry.
Yeah.
I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, which was unheard of because I would get up at 8 for cartoons, of course, as a 13-year-old or 12-year-old. And I had like a terrible fever. But what was on at 5:30 in the morning was the syndicated Dragon Ball, the first 13 episodes. So I remember seeing it then, and I had seen like maybe 3 or 4 animes, like the Street Fighter movie, maybe My Neighbor Totoro, but it's just like, oh man, this looks so cool. But I was also like dying of a fever and like hallucinating. And my mom took me to the hospital with her because she worked there at the time. So I always associate Dragon Ball or finding Dragon Ball with that event in my life. And then, of course, DBZ hits Toonami. I'm watching it all on there. And Dragon Ball doesn't actually get dubbed for English, or the rest of it doesn't start being dubbed until 2001. The same for Dragon Ball Z, like more stuff doesn't start coming out until 2000. So I had seen everything that they had dubbed formerly, but in that gulf of time between, the content running out and then making new dubs, I had sort of thought I grew up a bit. I'm like, I'm going to put away my childish things and watch Cowboy Bebop and Trigun for mature adults. So I missed almost everything after after the original dubs cut off. So most of this is new to me. I will say that in the late 90s, because for some reason, and I think it's because there's a big Japanese population, in Hawaii, a network was running this subtitle. And so those were very popular fan subs in the fan sub circulation because someone else, like a network, had already subbed all of the series. So I was getting those, and I got all the tournament arc. The problem was they were like 8th generation, and like riding the tracking buttons on my remote was like a mini game as I was watching. I just couldn't do it anymore. But so I've seen all of this up to the tournament arc, this first tournament arc to the end of it. And I think now, because I have lots of free time, I'm just going to watch all of Dragon Ball.
Can I actually tell you a story real quick?
Sure.
About Dragon Ball? So Bob's story actually just reminded me. So where I grew up, there's a channel which is basically Asian public access. They show like Japanese like soap operas on Saturday night and like Chinese religious programs or whatever and Indian shows and stuff. So we would have this channel on my TV a lot. And one of the things was at 8:30 in the morning, they had subtitled Dragon Ball Z. And so I would sit there and I would just be watching like Dragon Ball Z just like voraciously. And that's how I learned how to I started to learn to match the kanji to the names so I could start to learn Japanese by watching episodes of DBZ. So I could start like copying song lyrics and whatnot. And there was a website at the time in the mid-90s called Planet Namek, which was one of those standard like GameSpot or Planet Saturn or whatever, like all those video game websites. And Planet Namek was the biggest fan site there was for Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z. They had a huge timeline that I printed out on something like 60 pages of like dot matrix paper. So it was a big like linked stack that I could just refer to when I needed to know exactly which arc I was in or whatever. Because why would you need to download that and print it? I don't know, but I did. I still have the original MP2s of the Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z soundtrack, like the mini disc soundtracks that they would put out for like the Tenkaichi Budokai song or like the Red Ribbon Army song. And I still pull them out and play them because they're just so good and nostalgic to me. But the thing is, because I'm a linguist, a language nerd, when I discovered Dragon Ball was dubbed in a million different languages, I literally hunted them all down. So I've seen Dragon Ball in 26 different languages.
Wow.
That's great.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, I only watched it all the way through in like 2 or 3, but I would watch like arcs just in like, Filipino English or Tagalog or Mexican Spanish versus Castilian, just to see, just because I was that kind of nerd with time on my hands.
That's amazing.
Yes, I'm slightly jealous because, like, growing up in an ultra-white Ohio suburb, these fruits of the East were kept from me. Like, he mustn't know about other cultures. So by the time, the giant anime torrent happened in the late 90s, it was impossible. But I treasured every glimpse of anime I could find in the 90s growing up.
Yeah, in my suburban Florida existence, it was also very white. Like, Dragon Ball was the scope of anime. Like, if you said anime, people thought you either meant Dragon Ball or hentai tapes. Like, that would be the joke. But also it was Z, so if you wanted to talk about original Dragon Ball, for American anime fans, it's so backwards because you saw Z first, and then when you'd see the original run characters hanging around, they'd either be like goofballs who just like, who's this witch with a crystal ball? Or they would be poorly aged characters. They bring you a lot of questions like Mr. Popo.
But one of the things that always gets me is like when you think about Dragon Ball versus Z, you got like characters like Yamcha, who's like, prominent side character for the entire run. Yamcha in the first series starts off as a hardcore villain and then becomes one of the Dragon Ball just troop of following along. And then in Z, you realize just how steadily outclassed he gets step by step. He's just a human. He can't fly. He's got like one little kind of energy burst thing that was super awesome in Dragon Ball and super nothing in Dragon Ball Z. And to the point that he just stops fighting. He's like, look, man, I can't deal with the power creep in this universe here. Like, you got to turning blue. What do you want me to do?
Gotta be Krillin hung in there for a bit longer.
But yeah, you're right. The power creep thing, you even get a little of that in the pre-outer space adventures of the Z fighters. Like, you get some of that in this tournament, actually. Like, this is the first of many times Yamcha will be left behind in the first Tenkaichi tournament. It's so fun to go back to it, though, and see, like, Toriyama learning and growing. You get to see his art mature over time as you read the comics.
And it's softer and rounder.
I love the softness
Yeah.
of it, honestly. Like the sharp,
Yeah.
the pointed edges of people's like hair and nose is just crazy.
He just was, I mean, that was like, he is also following the trends of the decades, like
Yes.
80s soft and around, 90s just like very angular and pointy, lots of very detailed hair.
And Andy's setting the trends too. But
All I
That's
gotta
true,
say,
yeah,
though-
for sure.
All I gotta say though is like, those of us who grew up drawing Stussy S's in the early 90s were primed to draw Super Saiyan hair when we started seeing Dragon Ball Z, and it's all sharp angles and everything.
Dragon Ball is just such this amazing thing. Like,
I love the original though.
I guess why don't we go into the history then before we just nostalgia out about Dragon Ball overall for a while?
It's too late.
So yes, of course, if we're talking about Dragon Ball, we'll begin with the life of one Akira Toriyama, creator, artist, comic artist, storyteller, all those things. He's one of the greatest comic artists of all time, I would say, though a very humble and shy person as well. So he was born in Nagoya, Japan, 1955. Grew up a fan of like not just drawing and comics, but also kung fu movies and cars and pets and the cultures from all over the world, be it like Jackie Chan, Superman comics, Star Wars, Godzilla, Terminator. Like he's just an otaku at heart. I think just a hardcore fan of things, including like building models. That too. He's just, and you can see that love of all those things in every page of a comic he draws.
Yeah.
And in particular, he was also a fan of the very incredibly influential comic artist Osamu Tezuka. I think you can see a lot of that in especially the early Dragon Ball character designs for people, because you either have like hulking brutes or little cute guys. And also like this great sense of on-page storytelling that Tezuka really mastered in his comics too.
I'd say like Tezuka and Charles Schultz.
Yes, yeah, also a lot of shots.
God,
Yeah.
like watching this again, I'm like, God, their profiles are so peanutsy, and like their stature is so peanutsy. I mean, Krillin, we said it before on our 2 Charlie Brown podcast in 2019. Krillin is Charlie Brown.
Yeah.
Kung Fu
100%.
Charlie Brown.
I mean, you look at him, he's got that kind of same downtrodden, kind of just crushed vantage of the world of like, I guess. He's like resigned, he's sad, but he's just trucking.
Yeah. When you see Krillin next to young Goku, it is Charlie Brown with Linus. Like it is the two of them talking. Though,
Oh man, what if there was a tournament arc in Peanuts?
boy, well, I'd bet on Marcy. I think.
Oh man, yeah.
She secretly got all the power there. Maybe Peppermint Patty.
When she takes off her glasses, look out.
And so Toriyama got in the professional field, working at an advertising job in Nagoya, but he quit it. He said he couldn't stand the office scenario, and he went back to living with his parents and was working on being a comic artist. And at his attempts at becoming a comic artist, including submitting short stories to the then still pretty popular Weekly Shonen Jump comic title. And he wants to win a contest. That was also a lot of the ways back then how they got new talent. They'd be like, okay, it's the yearly contest, send in your submissions.
Ooh, free submissions.
And it was really about it, you get a token sum of money, like not an insubstantial amount of money, but it was really about connecting with more people than just the winner as well on those things. And so he submitted, but he never won, or his first 2 submissions didn't win, I should say. But they did put him in contact with a young editor at Weekly Shonen Jump. That would be Kazuhiko Torishima. Now, Torishima wasn't much of a comic reader prior to getting to Jump, and I learned a lot about him. He did this Forbes interview a few years ago where he gave away a lot of stuff I'd never heard him talk about before, at least in English language interviews. He wasn't much of a comic reader before joining Jump. He actually wanted to work for Shueisha because they were publishing Playboy magazine for Japan, and he's like, no, there's great articles in here. I like novels. Like,
The articles I see.
Yes. Yeah. And so Torishima, he credits himself creating many things in Jump and the structure of what we know Shonen Jump to be, and that includes the ranked fan voting for Jump comics to see which is the favorite, which is a key plot element of the Shonen Jump fictionalized version of it in Bakuman, that manga, and Torishima created that. Also, this skips ahead in time a bit, but he takes credit as the matchmaker for the Dragon Quest series.
Oh, okay.
Like as he told it, they wanted wanted to get more involved in these newfangled video games. He also, him and one of his editorial coworkers, Yuji Horii, they were big into Ultima and wizardry. And so they're like, you know what? If you started making a game with this company Enix, we could have all the insider scoop on the making of a game in Shonen Jump. But he also insisted that Shueisha not be part of ownership of it because he didn't want them interfering with it. So, and it was him who, of course, partnered Akira Toriyama with Yuji Horii on Dragon Quest. So it's the argument could be made. You'd have no Dragon Quest or JRPGs as we know them without Torishima as well.
The villain in this episode is a Dragon Quest enemy.
Yes, he is.
God, you're right. It looks exactly like the high-level Dragon Lord or something. That's kind of nuts. Yeah, Toriyama is just the fact that he's such a linchpin to some of the greatest things that have ever been made, right? Like Dragon Ball, obviously, but Dragon Quest, one of the most influential games of all time. Chrono Trigger, one of the most beloved games ever. I mean, the guy is one of the most unassuming masters there is of the art form.
And when talking about Torishima, I think something we need to understand that you might not if you don't know the Japanese comics industry is how much power an editor has over a comic, at least say in Jump. I'm not saying in all comics, but especially in Shonen Jump and similar serialized publications, the editor, I'd say more so than even in American comics, they call all these shots. Like they are sounding boards, they are approvers. Like this, things don't get published in Jump without an editor approving it. Like even at Toriyama's level, he'd get to later, he'd still have to submit to an editor and make changes and constantly make changes. Like storylines change, characters go away, series end because an editor says it should end. And like also they're guiding artists through these endless hellish deadlines. And in the often case of a Jump series getting an animated adaptation, they serve as producers and caretakers on those shows as well. So editors at Shonen Jump especially have incredible power. And Torishima, from the stories I read, definitely wielded it very strongly.
He worked Toriyama like a horse, man. Yeah. Like, this guy did just constant weekly drawing for like a decade of just straight through once a week episodes of Dragon Ball through the end of, I think, the Cell arc before Toriyama was like, look, man, you're going to kill me. And they're like, okay, well, we still need this cash cow, so you can have a break.
Yeah, manga authors famously overwork. They have like weekly schedules to meet. And I think like some of them do like 4 pages a day or something like that, something crazy like that.
To get those 13 out a week, you gotta.
Yeah.
And these chapters are, they're not short, but they're very detailed too. Like, the art in there is just like exquisite. And it's just, when you think about having to serialize one of these like lengthy battles, and Dragon Ball battles last a long, long time. So when you're thinking like, oh my God, he's got to draw these deeply detailed rocks blowing up for like months. It's just insane to think about.
So Toriyama, struggling artist from 1977 to 1980, working out of his parents' home. He is in contact with Torishima in the hopes of getting a series or at least more one-off specials and just submitting. By Torishima's count, in those 3 years, he turned down over 500 pages of comics from Toriyama. Just like, nah, not good enough. Keep working on it. I
want to see that collection released.
I wonder if I would bet there's some samples of it out there. But yeah, Toriyama, he could have also just thrown it away, or Torishima could have just been like, I'm burning these. These are garbage.
Burn the originals.
I think by Torishima would tell you that like I had to get him to draw everything bad out of his system, and I made him a great artist. But after 3 years straight of submissions, he finally got a sci-fi gag comic approved, and that would be Dr. Slump. As Torishima again told it, he loved that Arale was the main character and that she was very popular. And he said that Toriyama did not like it and didn't want her to be the lead in the start. But her popularity, he couldn't get rid of her. But he also refused to change the name of the title to, the anime is called Dr. Slump with Arale.
Oh, really?
Arale is a much bigger text in the title than Dr. Slump is.
Now all the manga for that has been localized, but as far as I know, none of the the anime has come over here in any way.
It's
officially.
all fan subbed.
It's really great. It's like sort of like an early 80s Japanese Mad magazine that eventually developed story arcs, but a lot of it is Toriyama making fun of himself. And some of the best parts of it are the autobiographical comics he writes in between chapters. Like you find out like what his life is like, how he's always almost blowing deadlines. There's a really funny comic of him living in his parents' house and having to like drive quickly to the airport to mail away pages to Shonen Jump because he lived like out in the sticks, right?
Yeah. He didn't move to Tokyo.
I've been to Nagoya once, and you have to take the Shinkansen there, the bullet train, and it takes a long time to get there from Tokyo.
What's insane to me is that he was drawing the end of Slump through the beginning of Dragon Ball.
That's
Like,
yeah.
When Dragon Ball had started, he was doing both simultaneously.
We went to the show for Urasawa, the manga author, and there's like a timeline of all of his works, and so many are overlapping with each other. It's crazy.
Yeah. That's the work ethic that is expected in weekly comics. I think it is honestly too taxing to put on creatives, and they don't have to do that. But
look at the Marmaduke guy. Look at Heathcliff.
Yeah, it's true.
They just draw 4 panels a day. Yawn.
But the thing is, though, so Toriyama did have an assistant at that time named Hisashi Tanaka, who used to sit and so Toriyama would do the pen and inks and like do the outlines and stuff, and Tanaka would come in and do the color, so that when you would have to do the coloring for like spot coloring for the mangas and the tankobons, Hisashi would come in and do that, so that Toriyama wouldn't have to do the entire thing by himself. And his wife, Toriyama's wife, helped out a lot when they were getting close to deadline and had to get it out the door.
Yeah. Actually, his wife, Nachi Mikami, she was a fellow comic creator who I believe once they got married and had kids, she retired. She chose to retire. But yeah, she was an assistant at one time for him as well. And I think probably as two, I would imagine a household of 2 comic artists, she is helping him all the time. I mean, they're living together. How could she not be? At the very least, a sounding board for stuff. Dr. Slump is getting super popular, even though he really wants to quit it. Torishima also told a funny story of he got the original design of a Dr. Slump villain, and he's like, this guy sucks. You make somebody who looks really evil. Think of the most evil person you can think of. And so Toriyama drew him and called him Dr. Mashirito, which is Torishima backwards in kana. And so yes, and Torishima said, like, I thought that would be a one-off character, but he turned out very popular, so he actually always appears.
Yeah, like all the jokes that I heard people make about Toriyama stuff in the 90s, he made about himself in Dr. Slump. There's like a joke in the comic that is plot relevant in that he can only draw one kind of face for women. So women can disguise themselves as each other because the artist can only draw one face.
That's funny.
Yeah, so like he made those jokes about himself and we're all like making those jokes later. Like Chrono's just, Orange Goku or whatever.
We were 20 years behind his self-deprecation. Yeah. Well, and also he'd even admit, he's like, he goofs off until the like 3rd day of a deadline. And he's like, all right, I'm just going to not sleep and just finish the chapter and ship it off, which with that kind of like work schedule too, that he produced the kind of pages he did. And also like on a gag comic like Dr. Slump, you don't need to plan out things way in advance.
Oh, yeah.
So with that kind of work ethic, you can see why he got into some story problems in Dragon Ball.
Yes, actually, Dr. Slump was written like improvisationally. There's like an autobiography comic about that where he's like, I don't know where the story will end when I start drawing the comic. And I feel like his editor whipped him into shape because by the time you need rules and stuff like for combat, it starts getting a lot less messy and a lot less gag based. But I think still with this tournament, we're still in like this is a gag manga, gag anime territory.
Yeah, and like half the fun of Dragon Ball, especially though, was also just the adventure of it, the hunting down of the Dragon Balls themselves, the kind of exploration, because when you see later things after the Tenkaichi Budokais and the Z saga starts, it becomes a lot less about exploration. There's like, we need to go to this place. Okay, we're here. Now we're just going to fight for the next month and a half. Okay, now we're going to the next place. Okay, we're here. Now we're going to fight. But in Dragon Ball, there was lengthy, just detailed. It felt like a travel log compared to a Street Fighter match.
In the Red Ribbon arc, it's like it's such a fun like James Bond style thing of like, where are they going to next? What area are they going to now?
It's just there's such whimsy and joy, and like you can see he's not been burnt out yet by all this. He's still enjoying himself, and the fighting is delightful. It's like it feels very much like, Shaolin style kung fu movies of the 70s and 80s. It's got a lot of like emphasis on weaponry and on like weird, just kind of combat tricks and attacks, and much less on just whose energy blast is stronger, which I mean, I'm a big fan of nonetheless, but it's also just, there's a marked difference between the way that Toriyama approached. It's almost like the joy that he approached Dragon Ball with versus the workmanlike nature of Dragon Ball Z.
I also like that I've been watching this tournament arc up and through this episode is that all the fights are set up for jokes.
Yeah.
It's just like the stinky guy fights Krillin. Krillin is reminded he doesn't have a nose, and that's how he wins. Like, it's always a setup for a joke that eventually will defeat the opponent. And this one, it's not as big of a joke, but it's still like a gimmick. It's still like a gag.
It's not about when this first tournament arc ends, and it really is the first time like Jackie Chun says to Goku, like, let's just punch each other. Like, enough of these techniques. It's time to punch each other. But yeah, so Slump is a huge success. If this was most artists, Dr. Slump would be the biggest success of their life because like millions of copies sold. It got an anime series that aired 243 episodes and multiple films, like career defining for most artists. And plus, he basically invented the poop emoji in this comic.
That's right.
Too.
Yeah. It's so great. I'm glad that we have finally embraced the Japanese swirly style poop. And now it's like you can watch a movie about it with Patrick Stewart.
Please.
Or as they call it in Animal Crossing, soft serve.
Oh, yes, the soft serve hat. I was just playing Dragon Quest Builders 2, and you get a lot of night dirt, as they say, and you build stuff with it.
So Dr. Slump is like 250 episodes. I mean, that's today an epic long series, right? Like, that is not short. That is absurdly long. And the fact that you would be able to chain off of that into a brand new show, like when you see the first few episodes of Dragon Ball, when you read the first mangas, that doesn't scream to you that this is going to be one of the greatest successes of all time, right? Like, it's like, okay, well, that's neat. It's kind of weird, but okay. But whoa. And if you were a Dr. Slump fan and then you jumped into Dragon Ball, what a weird transition, right? Like,
oh yeah. You're like, this is what the Slump guy's doing now, or he stopped doing Slump for this.
And like Arale is kind of like Goku in that there's superpowered little baby people, that smash everything. So he's starting from like a similar point, but then they branch off in way different directions.
Well, I mean, like Bulma and Goku are like if Arale was separated into two people with you've got the childlike innocence, but also all the gadget stuff. And so the Dr. Slump anime was handled by Toei Animation, highly regarded animation studio. By the mid-'80s, they had already done many comic adaptations, major ones like Cyborg 009, Devilman, Cutie Honey, all the Harlock, Leiji Matsumoto stuff. Like they knew how to adapt comics and make them popular. And they put a lot of their top folks on it. Dr. Slump, who would continue on with Toriyama into adapting Dragon Ball when that time would come. Though Torishima actually didn't like how much the Slump anime changed things. And he said in the same interview, he's like, we made a very big Bible and rules for this show when it went for Dragon Ball when Toei was going to do this one. And they stuck to it a lot closer. So as the story goes, Toriyama wants to quit Slump. They won't let him unless he can pitch a new comic that can replace it and that his editor feels confident in. Torishima had gone up to Nagoya, hung out with him for days and days, trying to figure out what it could be. They just don't like anything. And as they are chilling out, Toriyama's wife comes in and mentions that Toriyama, unlike most comic creators who at the time, they put on music or the radio while they draw, not something that you can look at. He would put on Jackie Chan VHSs and watch, or other comedy kung fu movies, but especially Jackie Chan. He would watch those while drawing, and he was just heavily influenced by them or just really loved them. And so Torishima was like, then do a kung fu comedy. Like, do that. You love all this kung fu stuff. You love Jackie Chan. Do something with that. Though one other Shonen Jump editor in an interview, he said that he thought Toriyama only did a fighting thing because Fist of the North Star was the most popular comic in Jump, and he wanted to get on the fighting bandwagon. But I don't know how much you can believe that.
It's far different tone from that in Dragon
Yeah,
Ball.
like it's kind of a stretch to say that Fist of the North Star inspires Dragon Ball, right? Like they're about as far away on the shonen scale from each other as you can get.
Yeah.
Though Dragon Ball Z kind of comes closer, but it's not nearly as much as just abject violence, right? Like everything in Dragon Ball in the early days, especially, was just, it's more drunken master than it is like one of those other just like crazy like gore fests of the olden days.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you could say that about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Like, that wouldn't exist without Fist of the North Star to rip off for the first year of the comic.
Yeah.
But though JoJo became its own thing and its own magical thing that we all love as well. But
JoJo's weird.
but talking about Jackie Chan as well, like, he liked Dr. Slump as well. If you see the 1985 Jackie Chan film My Lucky Stars, there's a sequence at, I believe it's in China. He goes to a theme park and dresses up in an Arale mascot costume to sneak in. And some Dragon Ball super fan even pulled out this 1986 interview where it's like Jackie Chan meets Akira Toriyama and they talk about the influence on each other's works. Like, it's really cool. Yeah. So yes, they then decide they're going to go with a combat manga. They're working on still a bunch of tests. They publish a pilot comic in Shonen Jump called Dragon Boy, which has a lot of similarities of things you'd see in later. In the regular series, you've got an innocent/dumb male lead, a female sidekick, sexy comedy antics with some action as well, and a dragon that is summoned from a ball. So so they reworked it more over the course of 1984. They'd grow the cast. Toriyama originally thought of making the lead character even like literally a monkey, but then he was talked out of it. Like, no, make it a boy. So makes it a boy with a tail. Torishima was the one apparently who pushed it really hard to be a comedic retelling of Journey to the West / Sayuki, which I believe is the Japanese name for it.
I was just about to say, I'm like, Fist of the North Star seems far afield, but really 1978 through 1980, the most popular show in China and Japan and really dubbed into, Mexico and other countries was Sayuki, the adaptation of Journey to the West, which is obviously one of the 4 classic Chinese novels. The other ones like, Suikoden and Rise of the Three Kingdoms. And then the fourth one, it's like the red something. But Journey to the West is a Buddhist parable story about a monkey named Sun Wukong and goes to India with his motley crew of like friends to, try to discover enlightenment and whatnot. And the whole thing is this long adventure of Monkey and Pigsy and all of these other kind of like people who go off to find enlightenment and meet the bodhisattvas and, try to understand the principles of Buddhism and what have you. He goes along this way and gets companions on this adventure. He's basically going through all of these places in China and India along the Silk Road. And it's just this fantastic and remarkable story that kind of like delves into the whole culture of that area in the time period. And among them, his companions are people like, that we would later recognize from Dragon Ball as like the little pig demon or the river ogre who becomes like, like the Friar Tuck type of character. And all of these like just mystical, crazy people that the Monkey King meets up. And the Monkey King himself is basically the Hindu god Hanuman who's been transmitted through China. And so this whole big story is like just epic length. And in the 70s and 80s, it became a TV serial, which was called Monkey, which was absolutely delightful. And it was dubbed into a million countries. It was even in like the UK and like, the West. We even got it here in America too. It's like kind of a cult classic. And from that, you get this story, which when you watch Monkey, you're just like, holy crap, Toriyama just straight up took scripts from this and went to town.
Yeah, I only know about any of these works of Chinese literature because of video games and anime that are based on them, because they obviously did not teach us about any of this stuff in our schools.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in general, you talk about the classics of Western culture and you kind of ignore, like, China wrote a novel a long time before anybody in England did, but we don't talk about those things. It's, So it's that Dragon Ball and Koei Tecmo, they have really helped cover these classics of literature for Americans who would otherwise not know them.
Like Romance of the Three Kingdoms was like from the 14th century. Beyond Dynasty Warriors is one of the just great, phenomenal, like just political works out there. But like Journey to the West was a 16th century novel, and it was huge in China, Korea, Japan, in all of the places that Chinese influence went to. And like the Monkey King is still like, you can go to Cambodia right now and get like, I've got hanging on my wall actually a Cambodian artwork of the Monkey King flying off to see the Bodhisattva at the end of the book. And it's amazing. I mean, it's such a good book, and you can see why Toriyama was able to mine so much of the original Dragon Ball out of it.
Yeah, and I mean, Goku is one of, like, he's hardly the first character in anime or manga to be a Son Goku, Son Wukong adaptation as well, and he wouldn't be the last either. Though I also, I saw one article bring up that he's kind of not just Son Wukong, but also Japanese mythological figure of Kintaro, who is a round, soft, and somewhat dumb but good-hearted boy who, like, in the biggest point I saw was in the first episode, he catches that fish with his tail, and it's this giant tuna. He just walks home. That's one of the things Kintaro does in his classic mythology as well.
Absolutely. The thing is, Son Goku is one of those holy fools in the beginning of the story. He's like just this completely innocent and like completely oblivious. I guess this has come almost all the way through the series. It holds up that he's just so utterly oblivious to like any of the dangers surrounding him, any of the kind of just weirdness. He's just happy to live his life. He's like an embodiment of joy and an embodiment of like consumption almost, but not like wasteful consumption. He's just like, I'm living for food. I'm taking all of these things that exist right now and enjoying them for what they are right now. I'm not worried about what's going to come. I'm not worried about what has happened. And that's how he like takes his enemies and he turns them into his best friend and his Koteri. He's like, look, man, bygones are bygones. We are living now in the present. Like, I mean, not to get too far up my own butt about this, but like when I was in college, I wrote a paper about Dragon Ball and Buddhism and like the nature of like how Goku himself just represents the enlightened, the enlightened one who's just walking around, the Bodhisattva who has chosen not to depart. Even later on, when he's dead, he's still just hanging around. He could go to enlightenment, but he instead chooses to stay there and help his friends find their way up too. And it's just a theme that runs through the entire serial.
Toriyama, in the initial run, like the first 20 chapters of it, he made all these characters who are one-to-one, like Oolong is Pixie, and Bulma is kind of the monk, I guess, is who she'd be comparable to.
She fills a lot of the same role.
And he said, I initially thought that I'd end it after they finished collecting the Dragon Balls as well. And so the first 20 chapters happened. Then it's so much of a comedy thing, like, and also full of the kind of like, raunchy sex antics that also make you popular in Shonen Jump. Like, as a boys magazine, you have in panty jokes or jokes about sexual harassment that were different. That they were
the
bad
1980s
then.
were a different place.
We always had one of the stock anime characters or like easy go-to jokes was like the Lech character who was like a pervo. But I also like he is basically like, wouldn't it be funny if ... and that is a character. He doesn't realize he's got to hold on to this character for 10 years.
That definitely like bites him in the butt quite a few times, right? Like when he's got Tenshin Han, who's the very standard stock kind of kung fu character with the three eyes, who's doing this, and he's like, oh god, now I have to deal with this random three-eyed weirdo for like ever.
It's why like shortly into the series you have two shape-shifting characters who can turn into anything. Just like two? Okay, sure.
Well, and I think it's funny too that I remember all my friends and coworkers at like my first job, they took Dragon Ball so seriously and they were coming at it from, I think, a very American standpoint of like, who's the strongest? This is very serious. This is mature. They were talking about it the way they talk about mature comic books that are full of violence and sex. And we were all talking about this of silly characters who have like comedy names like Pilaf and Tambourine. Like it was always a comedy.
Every name was a pun. I mean,
the Kamehameha wave is a pun. Like
Gohan,
it's a joke.
Piccolo, everything.
Oh god, Piccolo and Drum and all of the Piccolo crew are all named like after musical instruments, and the Saiyans are all named after vegetables. Buduma Bloomers, which is literally ladies' underwear.
Trunks.
Her father, Dr. Briefs. Her son, Trunks. I'm like, come on, man.
The Underpants family.
Wonderful Underpants family. So, Torishima, his editor, was feeling that the series was starting to go down in popularity as it was just them hunting for Dragon Balls. And he pushed for a reboot of the series, a soft reboot that would involve dumping every character we'd met to that point except for Muten Roshi, giving Goku a new rival, dumping Yamcha as a rival. Goku would get a new rival named Krillin. Like you can see, if you read chapter 20, Bulma and Yamcha kind of run off into the sunset together. It could have been their finales as characters, you know?
Just starting the series, my rewatch from the tournament arc, the first one, it's so funny where it's just like, yeah, it's not about Dragon Balls anymore. It's like, but the name, it says, no, it's about this now. You forget about those balls.
And also the end of the first Dragon Ball arc, he just kind of makes up like, actually the Dragon Balls all turn into rocks and you can't even use them anymore. So you can't hunt them down. Even the radar doesn't work.
Go do this more popular thing while they regenerate.
Well, I mean, I love that like later deep into the series, they're like, oh crap, we need to summon the dragon for a thing. Okay, 10 seconds later, okay, I got all the balls. And I'm like, come on, man.
Yeah.
That was a whole point. Yeah, well.
Toriyama talking about the redesign and rebooting of it. He says, when I designed Goku's character, the words that best represented it to me were, I want to become strong. So I thought I'd bring that to the front. Even during Dr. Slump, many events and tournaments like things would happen, like the Penguin Village Grand Prix had been amazingly popular. So I'd simply make a story into a tournament format. From there, the World Martial Arts Tournament was born. I temporarily withdrew characters other than Goku, brought back Master Roshi, and added Krillin as a new character. From there, it got popular before I knew it.
He created a monster with his first arc, tournament arc.
And from there, it would just get bigger and bolder. But as the tournament arc was starting, the first tournament arc wraps up in number 64, around in the 60s. And that is when Toriyama and Torishima are also overseeing an adaptation of it for television at Toei with many of the same people who worked on Dr. Slump. It followed the manga much closer than Slump did, usually averaging about 1 or 2 chapters per a single episode, embellishing when they needed to, and adding the occasional filler arc, though the first filler arc doesn't come in until episode 29. So compared to the filler we all know about in later Dragon Ball cartoons, pretty small on that. Folks at the top on there, you have initial series director Minoru Okazaki. He was an industry veteran. Good dates back to Mushi Pro's Astro Boy cartoon, so like the first TV anime. He had directed on Slump and the Slump movies as well. Head writer of that era of Dragon Ball was Minoru Maeda, another Slump veteran. Minoru Maeda was also the character designer and lead animation director for both Slump and Dragon Ball. And he stayed along even until Dragon Ball Z. He really understood how to make Kira Toriyama's style work in moving pictures.
I think that Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z have this weird reputation of being just very, poorly animated, just lots of static shots. That's true. They do use those cheats, but I think those shows are compared unfairly to shows that aren't weekly shows that run for 200 episodes. I was watching these again. I'm like, these shows look really, really good. Like the first thing you see when this arc kicks off is Goku just flying around on his cloud. And there's all these like first person shots of things like zooming past him and all these neat like effects and stuff like that. I mean, again, they do use the tricks you need to use to make things a little easier to produce on a weekly schedule.
Yeah.
But we are in bubble Japan economy. They are spending money on this show and it looks very good.
Oh yeah, I mean, when you even just think about the crowd shots in the Tenkaichi Budokai, Toriyama based all of it on his vacation to like Bali. So there's like a whole tropical scene. It's absolutely lush. And when you think about this compared to, say, the Cell Saga, which was another Tenkaichi Budokai, that's just like featureless green and a couple of brown crags and almost nothing for miles. This is just like this vibrant looking area. It's completely delightful.
And the voice cast they got was great. I only want to talk about one member of it, though, and that is the living legend, Masako Nozawa, the amazing woman who has been voicing Goku for 34 years straight. Like, she was like, Toriyama cast her because of how well she could handle this like silly, dumbass warrior. And she was sure that when Goku got aged up at the end of regular Dragon Ball, she'd be recast. But Toriyama and the others were like, no, you're Goku. Like you. So when you see like the Broly movie for Dragon Ball Super, which was amazing and greatly animated, Nozawa is still voicing Goku with basically the same voice she did for the child Goku you see in 1985.
She was born in 1936, by the way. She is 83 years old and still doing Son Goku.
It's amazing. Like she was she was in her 50s when she was cast as Goku
that's nuts.
as well. Like that's
But here's the thing. She does Goku, she does Gohan, she does Goten, and she does like 4 other characters in the
That's
show.
right.
That's insane.
So ratings were going well on the show. There were multiple films already. Torishima, though, says he was dissatisfied with the production and was pushing Toei for a change in staff. At episode 83, they got a new series director in Daisuke Nishio and a new series lead writer in Takao Koyama. Though also the original director of the series, Ozaki, he then moved over to working on the Toei side of the first 65 episodes of The Real Ghostbusters for DiC.
Wow.
So,
Oh, sorry, Henry. I was looking this up. I want to make sure I was right because I had an inkling I was. And another voice actor I want to bring up really quickly is the voice of Krillin, Mayumi Tanaka, which is she's now known as Monkey D. Luffy. She's Luffy. So the voice of Krillin is Luffy, a character she's been playing now for 21 years.
I should have realized that was Luffy's voice when I heard Krillin in this.
But obviously, One Piece draws a ton from Dragon Ball.
One Piece exists because of Dragon Ball.
Definitely. So I assume he was casting based on the voice actors he loved watching as a kid.
I feel for the animators too, because Toriyama is the first to admit he plans nothing ahead of time. And so even with like a year of manga to work alongside that's been made at that point, they still don't know what he's planning, and they have to deal with his weird rewrites as well. And obviously, Toriyama did not say when he was writing these in the 80s that Goku was an alien from outer space, nor was Piccolo either.
It's quite a retcon that worked.
It's insane how well it worked. Yeah.
I mean, when you think about the fact that he's got a tail, they have to justify it somehow. And they're like, he's an alien. It's like, all right, you know what? Fine, you can have it.
I'll buy it.
There's so many great funny lines in the series, including in this episode where they just go like, "You're not human," which now have a whole nother level to them with the Z reveal. Well, and as the series would go on, it would kind of go between these plot lines of like a searching for Dragon Ball's adventure and then a tournament arc, a searching for Dragon Ball's adventure tournament arc, fighting King Piccolo tournament arc, and as this would be going on too, though, Toriyama was feeling frustrated with how he had to draw Goku for these fighting things. Like he didn't imagine the character of Goku would be doing all these crazy, like just martial arts moves with his tiny body. Like if you read, especially in the comics, the King Piccolo final battle, he has to draw Goku like he's a foot taller in it just to make it like physically work. And so
his legs are so stumpy, and he's just like, how do you... Like an enemy can just hold him a foot away and Goku can't do anything.
And then so that's why for the final arc of regular Dragon Ball, Goku grows up. He's allowed to become adult sized.
It's so weird, and it feels kind of desperate, but it works in that there are 2 time skips in this manga series very close to each other.
Yeah. They make major, well, even when it's not an official time skip, you'll get like 3 panels that just say like, as time passed 6 months later, it's also a funny thing in his rewriting of stuff. In the first World Martial Arts Tournament, they say out loud, this is every 5 years. When the next one happens, they're like, they actually changed it to every 3 years now. So Torishima felt that the comic was reaching a turning point, and also he was feeling that the anime needed to do that too. In that Forbes interview, he specifically points out that the final moments of the King Piccolo fight, which is the amazing moment where Goku literally jumps through King Piccolo's chest and kills him.
I've seen that meme, but it's Ralph Wiggum instead of Goku.
But Torishima felt the anime company messed that up. He was disappointed by it, even though I think it looks awesome.
It does look
but-
great,
Yeah,
yeah.
it does.
But so he wanted to hire new producers. He said he actually got Toei to fire their producer,
Aw.
and he wanted to replace the staff on the anime. And as the turning point was happening anyway, seemed like a natural time to change the show with the final episode of regular Dragon Ball is a filler episode that shows a thing that was never in the comics for a joke, but really should have been, which is Goku's wedding to Chi-Chi.
Oh, yeah.
That's the final episode of classic Dragon Ball.
That's important connective tissue.
Though it is funny in the first chapter of Z, he shows up like, yeah, I got married, and here's my kid. Like,
Like the context that we watch Dragon Ball Z, like these are supposed to be surprising things to viewers, but for us, it's like, yeah, here's some new characters, right?
Yep,
He's got a son and a wife, and so on.
Baby Goku and Baby Gohan's got the Dragon Ball on his hat, and he's wearing the tiny little Chinese outfit to remind you that this was once a Journey to the West knockoff, and now it's become its own thing. It's like Son Gohan's introduction with Goku in that scene is just so many like throwbacks and Easter eggs all in one image. It's amazing.
which was totally lost on people without the context of Dragon Ball.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
no
like,
idea.
for all of us. Yeah, so that's the history up to April 1989, where Dragon Ball ended and became another series. But that's a story for another podcast. I do want to talk real quickly about how they attempted to bring it to America. Dragon Ball appealed, huge hit all over Asia. Asia loved it. In 1990, I believe France was the first European country, but many others would get it too. And America was very late to it by comparison. You'd hear about it like, this is the biggest thing in the world. Why doesn't America have it? So, of course, a company like Harmony Gold is going to try to bring it here. But they also do the Harmony Gold thing of a ton of rewriting and changes. Goku is called Zero.
I mean, some of the changes don't make sense. When I watch the original uncut subversion, I'm like, how did anyone think they could ever bring this to America in that time period?
As Simpsons would say, it's too much of a boy for Crazy Town and too crazy for Boys Town.
Definitely.
It is one of those like lost in translation things for American distributors that you have this crazy popular thing in other countries. You think, I can sell this in America, but then you're faced with a show that is like too violent and sexual to ever get on US kids programming, even if you draw all the underwear on Goku you want. But then the show you have is also too childish for older boys in America. And so they're just left in this weird nothing zone. It's a big reason why Dragon Ball Z was so much more popular in America. They just skipped all the goofy stuff, or that's how Americans would feel. I'm not saying that's how I feel, but they skip all the goofy stuff and get straight to the action. And so that just left Dragon Ball Classic in this weird place of just the only reason it got a real translation over here so when Ocean dubbed it over and did 13 episodes to try to sell it, it still didn't do very well, and they just gave up and focused on Dragon Ball Z, and even that didn't succeed until it got on Toonami, but succeed it did there.
And now it's like everybody everywhere knows what Dragon Ball Z is, right? It's like one of just the cultural touch points of a modern millennium America, right? It's just
Exactly.
insane to me.
Everyone knows it. To go from 1995 nobody knowing what Dragon Ball is to being able to just say like Goku or going Super Saiyan or whatever. Everybody knows what that means.
And all the games are coming out still.
Oh God,
and they're better than ever.
Yeah.
Oh my God, dude. I remember importing Dragon Ball GT for the PlayStation, and it was just such a terrible game, but we were so excited to be playing a Dragon Ball game in America.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, like one of the things that people tend to miss in these cultural kind of views is how impactful it was on like the urban community in America as well. And like Black culture and stuff was deeply, deeply influenced by Dragon Ball, the way that like in 1970s, Black culture was influenced by, Kung Fu movies, to the point that you got like the WWF wrestlers who were coming out dressed up like the Dragon Ball characters. You got people using like Goku and Vegeta's resilience and as their own kind of like symbolism and stuff. And it's become huge in every facet of Western culture.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like Dragon Ball in the original dubs, they're taking Master Roshi's beer glasses and painting them white. So he's got frothy glasses of water.
That's right. There was this great website, probably still exists, called DBZ Uncensored, and it would show you everything that was cut, both in terms of scenes and also what was changed visually, and it was so great. I loved reading it and getting mad.
Some of the edits, you could tell they had no idea how to deal. Like, so in Dragon Ball Z, right, when they've got flashbacks to when Baby Goku is coming out of his little pod, he's a naked little baby, and they've got these floating like leaves just kind of coming over his crotch, and it's like, oh, come on, man.
Well, like 1995 digital editing tech, like, so it looks like crap. Yeah.
I forget what even the pig is Oolong, correct?
Yes.
I almost forgot his name. I forget what he even gets at the end of those dubbed episodes, because it's not panties, right?
Yeah, it was like some. God, what did they? I mean, it was very obviously a triangle with cloth, right?
Yeah.
Well, and we all know in the NES Dragon Ball game that came here and wasn't even called Dragon Ball, those
Dragon
panties,
Heroes.
those panties became a sandwich.
Delicious sandwiches that make your nose bleed.
It was a sandwich in the dub too.
Oh wow, okay.
Oh no, the U.S. version of Dragon Ball, which was aired on Cartoon Network, Oolong was expelled, saying instead of stealing the teacher's panties, it changed to him stealing the teacher's papers. So it was a triangle folded thing of papers.
Oh, okay.
Pretty clever.
Sure.
But so,
Why
they, by the summer of 2001, Funimation now had U.S. familiarity and desire for Dragon Ball was at an all-time high. They were running out of Z episodes. GT is kind of its own question, but you know what? They could easily sell Cartoon Network on 153 episodes of classic Dragon Ball. And so they then repackaged it, redubbed it all again. They still made edits for the broadcast, but they were selling uncut versions of it as well. Uncut for the first time. Also, Viz, the manga company, started publishing it uncut as well. So Dragon Ball availability from 2001 onward has been pretty widespread in America since then.
And God, if they had just immediately started airing all of it when the Toonami run happened in '98, I would have just watched it. But that 3 years felt like an eternity, and I was watching every other anime in that gulf of time.
It was a long, long wait.
Meanwhile, I was like, staking out IRC channels and downloading like bootlegs from everywhere. I would go to like Chinatown in San Francisco and in New York and buy like the latest Hong Kong ripoffs from like weird back alley stores. And I had so many Dragon Ball Z tapes and Dragon Ball tapes when I finally threw them all away. Copies of copies from someone somewhere of like, you would take the tape and set it to 6-hour mode, which would make the quality totally garbage.
Oh yeah.
And then you would just be watching these just like complete, like fragmented, shattered episodes of like raw Dragon Ball, and we didn't care. We ate it up. It was amazing.
You mentioned that quality. That's actually one thing I want to mention real quick. Oh
yes, please. I wanted to solve this mystery.
So in the archival process of Dragon Ball, like it's never looked better. You can watch it on Blu-ray and Funimation now and other streaming and Hulu in the US. It looks great, but the sound, ooh boy, that sound. The issue, I always thought, well, that's just how it sounds. Like this is their sound techniques out there, but there are contemporary animes from that time that if you watch their Blu-rays or DVDs, they sound better. It was Toei Animation was being cheap in the mid 80s. They filmed it on 16 millimeter, and that's the masters, and they kept those masters, and those look good. But they had the master audio, which they broadcast, but that's a whole other giant reel. And so they're like, well, we have the audio attached to the 16 millimeter as well.
Oh, that's it.
Let's just toss the old audio. And so they didn't keep their master audio.
Oh.
They only have it off the 60 millimeter. So that's why it sounds that
explains
way.
so much. So it's the audio track on the 60 millimeter film.
Yes.
It's not like,
I mean, like when I first started watching the dubs and the subs, and you would switch between them, and like the dubs would have this deep, rich audio. I mean, like the songs were kind of rewritten for America or whatever, but like the originals just sounded tinny and hollow and really just bad. Like the music from Dragon Ball, which I have a lot of like the CDs and stuff, on CD it sounds great, but when you watch it in the show, It's like trash.
Yeah.
I thought it was just a result of Winamp, not because of actual tape loss.
It sounds like you're watching the program over the phone or something.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes,
it's not
exactly.
unwatchable, but it does take like about 5 minutes to get used to. Like, this is what it's going to sound like. If you want to hear the original voices, this is what they will sound like.
Yeah, so I found a funny thing that in certain sects of the Dragon Ball collector verse, specifically those native to Japan, if they taped it off of TV in the 80s when this aired, they have copies that actually sound good. And so in the bootleg world,
Wow.
you can get the audio files people have spliced together from VHSs they record then that sound 10 times better. You're like, this is how it was always supposed to sound, and this is the closest you're gonna get. And so I believe I found a website that talked about how they had it complete for every Dragon Ball Z episode, but they're still working on Dragon Ball because, VCRs, there were fewer people taping things off TV, and Toei just didn't want to keep it too because they thought this is a kid's show. People who buy anime on tapes in the 80s, they don't want kid shows, so why bother? Why bother? So that's why it sounds so bad.
Oh my God.
Why don't we take a quick break after all that history, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about the 23rd episode of the original Dragon Ball series, Monster Beast Giran.
You know their names. Now see the show that started it all. Earth's mightiest warriors. Only smaller. Dragon Ball. Premiering Monday at 5:30.
Master Roshi, get off the toilet.
I said hold on.
You're stinky.
They're so cute at that age. Only to mommy.
Thanks for using your Dragon Radar to listen to this week's podcast. It's me, Henry Gilbert.
Hey, it's Bob Mackey, and I'm floating on a cloud because I'm pure of heart.
And we thank you so much for listening to this week's podcast. And a big thanks to our guest, Shivam Bhatt. He was so helpful and insightful in the history of Dragon Ball. You guys should check out his cool podcast and follow him on Twitter. And this podcast and our sister podcast, Talking Simpsons, are brought to you by our wonderful subscribers at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
That's right. If you go to patreon.com/Talking Simpsons and sign up at the $5 level, you'll get access to everything behind that paywall. And also, you'll get all of these episodes 1 week ahead of time and ad-free for both Talking Simpsons and What a Cartoon. So behind that paywall exists all of our miniseries, the most recent of which is Talking Mission Hill, our full exploration of the only season of Mission Hill. But we've also done things in the past like Talking of the Hill, Talking Critic, and Talking Futurama. And also so many things on top of that, like interviews, end-of-season wrap-ups, and deleted scene specials for Talking Simpsons. Once you sign up, you'll immediately get access to everything we've done for the past nearly 3 years we've been doing this Patreon. That is a ton of content immediately for you and so much more to come in the future. And Henry will tell everybody out there what is happening at the $10 level at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. One super long podcast once a month that is just for patrons, and it's about a movie.
That's right. If you enjoy our What a Cartoon podcast and wish to hear us talk about a feature film, often for up to or over 4 hours, you need to check out our What a Cartoon movie podcast, where we talk about a different animated feature film once a month. That includes last month's anime classic, Lupin III, The Castle of Cagliostro. This month, you'll be hearing Toy Story 2 if you sign up, and you'll get access to the entire back catalog, a wide range of films, including anime classics like Akira and Kiki's Delivery Service if you're in an extra animated mood after this Dragon Ball podcast. So please sign up at $10 a month to get over 60 hours of premium podcasts, as well as all the $5 stuff Bob just listed.
And if you've never signed up for Patreon before, it is so easy to do. And once you do, you're given access to a code that you have access to at all times. You just drop that code into whatever you use to listen to podcasts. There is also a Patreon app that's very useful, so you can either use the code or use the app. But either way, it is so easy to listen to our bonus podcasts alongside all of your normal free podcasts.
All right, now let's get back on our quest for Dragon Balls as we go through the episode of Monster Beast Giran. That is the opening of Dragon Ball. You just heard Maka Fushigi Adventure. Ba-da-dum-bum-ba-dum.
I like how it starts with just the image of the sun.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. You're just in space at the very beginning of this theme song.
And that's performed by Hiroki Takahashi. And unlike with Dragon Ball Z, when they brought this to America, they covered it in English. Like, it is just the song, basically, with to the same tune and everything. Like, I felt so bad that once I heard Cha-la, Cha... Yeah. Once I heard that, I was like, why didn't we get that? What the fuck?
Would you believe?
Oh my god, Dragon, Rock the Dragon, Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
Dragon.
Hey, a good guitar solo on that, though. But would you believe the person who did all the music for Dragon Ball did all the music for One Piece?
Of course. Wow.
Very, you could see where it's all coming
that's
from.
That's Oda, man. He's
and that music is great, too.
That opening was the opening for every episode of the series, 153 of them. They didn't change it until it became Z. I looked up some of the contemporaries of it in the early to mid 80s. It seems like it was kind of normal. Like one of my most favorite anime series, Urusei Yatsura, they do change that on the 77th episode. They changed their opening. Meanwhile, Dr. Slump kept it the same for 197 episodes before changing it near the end. And DBZ also wouldn't change their opening for 200 episodes. So it was pretty normal back then. Now it sounds crazy to me. Like, 3 years, the same opening? Really?
Yeah, I was just about to say, like, nowadays, if you're making it through a season with the same opening, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, the marketing machine has advanced to the point where it's just such a a platform for singles and bands. Like, yeah, you're going to waste your time having one song on there for too long.
Also, I mean, it's a lovely, gorgeous opening with so many great shots, but it promises the show that is the first 13 episodes. Like, he's in his blue suit that he only wears until he goes to this World Martial Arts tournament. It has all of the hunting Dragon Ball characters. Krillin's not in the fucking opening.
That's great, yeah.
Poor Krillin.
He gets hated at all the time.
I like how some of the chapter opening drawings are in the opening. At least one I can think of is Bulma and Goku and the dinosaur, like riding the dinosaur.
Yeah. Oh, so many cool. They got a lot of cool stuff out of Toriyama's just like great drawings and stuff. I love that. So this episode directed by Masayuki Uchiyama, who would direct 44 total episodes of Dragon Ball before the big cast changeover, more than anyone else in classic Dragon Ball. He is a Toei megavet and with credits on just about everything Toei did until his passing in 2010. No longer with us, Uchiyama. And the episode is written by Toshiki Inouye. They wrote the first Dragon Ball movie and worked on many other popular series. So a well-known screenwriter, a ton of common writer credits as well. So Toshiki works in live action and animation as a screenwriter. Yes, I watched this in the Japanese sound, so because I do love the Japanese cast, and to me that bad sound is like warmly nostalgic of shitty sound to me, so I kind of like
you should hear a constant hiss.
I mean, look, it's just Dragon Ball. You accept it.
This episode begins with, as they usually do, a fun recap. Again, in my researching about this, I saw another fan subber put together the quickest way to watch Dragon Ball, which cuts out all the openings, all the endings, and all the previously on or next time on, and he shaves 20 hours out of its total runtime.
That makes sense. You kind of can figure out, like, when you're scanning the little timeline in your player, like, where is the title screen?
Yeah. But though this is helpful for us because we get a fun recap of the previous fights at the start of this, so we can talk about those too. Bacterian's fight is disgusting. It's so gross.
Yeah, I forgot how gross it got. Like, one of his attacks is he puts his hand down. By the way, he's like the stinky opponent. His goal, his like trick is he's stinky
man.
But one of his tricks is he puts his hand into his like bloomers or whatever, like wrestling underpants, and just like digs around his crotch and pulls out a big stinky hand.
Yeah,
and like touches you with his stinky finger. But the fact that he does it into his crotch is like, wow, and he does it for a long time. Good choice.
Hideous.
Good choice.
It's hideous. And of course, that in a very gag comic kind of way, Krillin defeats him because Goku reminds him Krillin doesn't have a nose, so he can't smell this.
I always love that because it's canon. Like that's not just a stylistic choice where you don't see his nose. He does not have a nose.
Krillin also is supposed to look like a pachinko ball. That's
great.
Kind of the joke about him.
His head is a lot shinier when he's a kid.
And as we find out later, like he chooses to shave his head. He's not a bald child like Charlie Brown.
The thing about Kuririn, when you look at him, he's got the dots on his head and stuff. He is a Shaolin monk. He is exactly like the traditional style of putting the dots on your head, which are basically the Chinese version of the Hindu tikas on the forehead. And so it was like when I saw him immediately, I was like, oh, look, he's a monk. It totally looks like it. He shaves his head. And I mean, yeah, he's short and stumpy or whatever, but yeah, I mean, monks. What do you
I love the first jokes with Krillin are about how he's scared of the monks he ran away from. He's like, oh, those monks were jerks. I need to train with somebody new. And then his big moment after all the training he did delivering milk and everything, his big moment is he's like, oh, I'm way stronger than all my old bullies. Fuck these guys. Like it's such a satisfying moment in the prelims when he beats them up. We also, after the Bacterian fight, which ends with Krillin farting in his face, which
I did screen cap and tweet that.
We then also get to see Jackie Chun beating Yamcha. Yamcha doing his first of many first-round losses here. That's the thing. Yamcha fulfilled the role he always has to fulfill until Piccolo and then Vegeta fulfills that role, which is to be a former rival of Goku, who then is defeated by his new enemy of the arc to prove how strong they are.
Every anime does this. It's almost like a trope at this point of just the power creep of one step to the next. Like when you're watching like Rurouni Kenshin or any of these other shows, you just see like, oh, look, it's a big bad. And now he's just nothing compared to the next big bad. And I mean, that's even why Dragon Ball went extraterrestrial, right? Like they ran out of people on Earth to be stronger than.
Once they set up that Piccolo, like nobody could be stronger than him on Earth, then they had to invent a lot of stuff there.
There's also Namu and Ranfan.
Yeah.
The the stripping opponent.
Yeah, boy, I forgot. I watched that whole fight over. I forgot that, you could definitely say Toriyama has some issues with writing women.
Oh, for sure.
And Ron Fawn, Long Fawn, like she is exactly that. Like she starts her fight with Nam as saying like, "Ooh, don't hurt me," and then when he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I won't," she then hits him, and she's like the two-faced woman who then uses her sexuality as her final goal. And it's like, ooh, boy, that's.
But ultimately, she doesn't get hit.
She gets a little chop on the
like
back
a little
of the
dink.
neck.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Of course, Nam. They even make a joke about him being a too stoic of a character for a gag manga or gag anime.
I do like that. And Roshi, you don't know where this anime is going. Just hold on to your seat, buddy.
So there was that's the Indian dude, right? Like,
Yes.
it's just so weird. I mean, Toriyama is very much of the Japanese style of every culture has one stereotype, and that one is it. So every Indian's got a robe guy with a turban, and it's like it's so weird. It's like it's very Dulcimi, right? Like it's very hack. It's very much like Japanese understanding of. Even in like episode 23, we see like the barkeep has got like the mustache and turban because the only people they knew were like apparently Sikh people who walk around with turbans all the time. But they knew that India had Hindu, so they make this guy look like so. It's basically this weird fusion of multiple cultures of Indian like societies into just one real, just hacky and super like gross stereotype.
It's a real punch out view of the world.
Yeah.
Punch out. Thank you.
That sucks, as do how he draws a lot of people of color. We see a couple in this episode as well. I don't know. Yeah.
Dude, there's a point where you're like, having lived there now, I can definitely say that Japan's attitude towards race is it's not evolved very far, let's say. And like, they just love having like if you're American, you got big old hair and guns and big brash looking eyes and you smell bad and the whole thing. And it's just like Indians are like emaciated turban wearers who happen to be some kind of spiritual. Namu's like, I will no longer think of you as a woman in this. And then I will fight you like a man, because that's both like the latent sexuality and also talking about the celibacy of like the monks and stuff in that culture. So it's kind of got this whole thing of like, if I stop treating you like a woman, then your womanly wiles won't get me, which is that's like a kung fu stereotype, not stereotype, but like trope. Oh, the master monk was defeated by the beautiful woman until he stopped thinking of her as a woman.
And also Nam, his whole backstory is he's trying to, save his people from famine.
Oh, yeah, because that's what they all do. Dawson's trying to save his people from famine. Namu, I mean, it's just like, hey, what do we know about Indians? They're brown, they've got turbans, and they starve.
They're hungry people. I do think with Toriyama, as unfortunate portrayal of like especially black characters, I think also a lot of it is like him just using the visual language that he knew.
Yeah,
like
manga.
relying on like
Tezuka drew exactly like that.
Yeah. Not to make excuses, but I think like
no, I mean it's true though. It's like he was like Toriyama doesn't spend a lot of time thinking about this. He's not looking for depth here. There's no like subtext that Toriyama is trying to put in, though. I mean, in Dragon Ball Z there is, but in Dragon Ball, this is all just like, okay, I need to have a world tournament. That means I need people from around the world who is visually standout-ish enough to be able to get away with having a crazy world tournament, right? And so obviously, yeah, you go for like this Indian monk character because that's like a really stellar, standout looking kind of just visual appearance. And it fits kind of the martial artsy vibe. It's pseudo Shaolin robes, and it's neat. As an adult, I sit and kind of like roll my eyes at it. But when I was watching it, it's a cool fight, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, and obviously when I was 12, the titillation was there.
Well, and after this episode, Dom's fight with Goku is a good one too. And it's one of those, it's a great setup for a fight because obviously as the viewer, you want the protagonist Goku, especially someone as likable as him, to win. But then you have this, issue for Goku is like, do I want to beat this guy who's only doing this to like feed an entire city? Like what do you do?
I will say this though, the Namu's backstory of when you look at his like the town that he comes from, because I just quickly pulled it up the episode and I have the entire series. I just pulled up the episode and I'm scanning through it and like they're all naked people in diapers or like ladies in hijabs, and I'm like, homie, pick a culture.
Yeah. Well,
and it's like this weird famine desert, and I'm like, what? Are they living on Mars? What is going on?
But yeah, so those fights have ended. It's now time for Goku's first round battle, and we see the storm clouds are starting to appear.
The filler clouds are gathered.
Yeah, well, so
I do like what they added to this. It's a fun, like, little scene of like character building.
yeah, this episode takes 2 chapters from the comics, but that's the second half of the episode. The first half of the episode is a made up filler section because Giran would go by too fast, and he really is a character that should be a full episode at least. And so they make up this excuse of a rain delay to then get a scene that, honestly, if Toriyama was working with, more planning, you'd probably have to set up Giran as more of just like, yeah, you look at him, he's scary, the end. Like, that's Giran, he's his first guy.
Like, knowing how he would drag things on a bit in the future, it's crazy to think this whole thing is like maybe 9 episodes long, this whole tournament arc. Like, that's it?
And that's with the filler Toei added, too.
Yeah.
Well, they'd learn from then on of like, we can make this longer. I think in general, I love tournament arcs so much in anime. Like, there's so much fun in the drama, in the matchmaking, in the rules. I just love how rules can change and refs are in there. Like, it has everything I love about both action anime and pro wrestling. Like, it's what I love about pro wrestling.
So where did you want to pick up here? Because I just want to say I love Giran coming into this like cafeteria in a trench coat and fedora, even though he's like a dinosaur. Sorry, I know we're skipping ahead.
Well, yeah, okay. So first, as they're about to fight, I love Giran's little march into the ring.
Yeah,
and his shout, and we get the Tenkaichi. Or World Martial Arts Tournament, I'll just say that, announcer, and he's always great, appears all the time, and always does this important stuff of explaining what just happened. Like, sometimes it's not clear, and also if you need to fill time in an anime, have a character explain an action scene you just saw. So he introduces to the audience for the first time Son Goku, and I always forget until I read the comics or rewatch the anime. In English, they always just call him Goku. No one calls him Son Goku, but in Japanese, they always say Son Goku.
Yeah, Bulma's like Son-kun and things like that.
Yeah, it's like, oh, is Son okay? Yeah.
I mean, it's always like Son Goku. Yeah, it's like it's always a full name, which is this weird kind of like, it's this martial arts throwback again to like. So for the past month or so, I've been reading the this Legend of the Condor Heroes, which is the very famous Hong Kong classic that started the entire wuxia genre of like kung fu movies, and like the whole thing stemmed from these serialized stories. And I've been reading it and watching Dragon Ball. And it's stunning how much like these like old Hong Kong stories of like the masters of the Wulin going up and meeting each other, and they're always using their full names. They're always doing all these things that you see show up time and time again in Dragon Ball. So like Son Goku is never just Goku, and that's also a Japanese culture thing, right? Like that would be disrespectful to just call him by his first name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I have my first little clip here. This is in Japanese, Goku introducing himself to the audience.
It's very different than Giran's entrance. He's very chipper.
I love his like the little noises Nozawa added to of like doot doot doot. Just a cutesy little 12-year-old goofing around. Another funny thing I love when you first read the comics that like he's introduced as 10 and then they have to change it. Like, no, he should be 12. Okay, Goku will just say, oh, I forgot how old I am. I'm actually 12.
That's a good retcon.
Yeah, I mean, and it makes sense. It fits his character. Of course he's not going to remember.
They're about to fight, and as I'm watching, I'm like, wait, I don't remember this being how it was in the comics. And then that first drop of water hits, and that's when it gets called off for a rain delay, completely invented for the show. And then we get kind of a Western kind of scene. Actually.
Yeah.
I love this so much, by the way, this whole thing. They're sitting in this Indonesian bar. It's got open walls and the straw hat. And then there's a dude dressed up like a straight Shaolin monk jamming on the piano like it's an old Wild West saloon. I love it.
With just like ding-a-ding, diddling-ding.
I also love the stare down in the rain before that with the lightning crashing and like lighting up their faces in different ways. It was just like very simple technique, but super effective.
Well, and as Giran is drawn in the comics, Toriyama just always had him walking around naked, which is just, he's just a monster. Like, characters even say, like, Oolong says, like, oh, it's just a monster, who cares? Like, he's drawn, if you look how the dragon on the Famicom box art for Dragon Quest 1 looks, it's pretty much Giran.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The Toei folks embellishing him with this giant top hat and this cloak, making him look 10 times cooler.
He's dressed as a Ninja
menacing.
Turtle in disguise.
Yeah, exactly.
That was my thought as well, yes.
Eastman and Laird really ripped them off there. And yeah, they're kind of talking at a table, the Dragon Ball Warriors, and Bulma is kind of practicing for her ending theme by just staring at the rain coming down on a window. And then we also get a quick thing of the subplot throughout all the world's martial arts tournament is Yamcha being the only person who realizes that Jackie Chun is clearly Master Roshi.
He's been thinking about this for 2 episodes. Like, wait a minute.
It looks just like it.
It's like trying to say that, oh no, that Serena is totally not Sailor Moon. I'm like, come on, man. Literally just look at them.
I love all the levels Muten Roshi goes to that of, like, he glues the wig onto his head. He asks Nam to pose as him in the audience so folks won't think he's there. But Yamcha the whole time, he's just like, man, I think that's him. As we find out, Roshi is posing as Jackie Chun so he can make sure Goku loses, because if Goku wins, he'll stop training, and he needs to keep the eye of the tiger alive. Giran comes in, and also in a very cowboy movie way, he orders milk, I think to pick a fight, that he's like, if I order milk, some folks are going to try to start a fight with me.
A good fight picking trick.
Of course, the bunch of jerk monks who have already been defeated, they show up to be like further assholes, which, like, this guy's a monster. Maybe you leave him alone.
Let him drink his milk in peace.
Like, if you see obvious demon wings coming out of the back of his trench coat, maybe just put it down and walk away.
And I love in the subtitles they call me Milk Monster. In Japanese, it is Milk Kaiju. So it's really cute. Man, another cool. The Toei added so many cool moments for Giran, including his like, pour me the milk as I beat them, and he beats all of them before the milk is done pouring.
I wrote that down, a very cool touch.
Oh, so
Just so you
I
can
love
see
how like the milk is going in slow motion. And it's such a cinematic scene.
And the sounds of a punch in Dragon Ball is just magical to me. I think it's why Smash Brothers like stole it, or just like, yeah, this is how a hard punch sounds. Ding! Like, it's so cool. And Giran never looks as cool as I remembered Giran from just reading the comics recently. I was like, oh yeah, he's kind of a big guy, but mainly he's a tricky like cheater. That's who Giran is. But this makes him seem like a physical threat to Goku, which adds more tension to their fight that's going to happen in the second half there. Yeah.
If I could interject for a second, one of the things about the Tenkaichi Budokais that always gets me is that these monsters get so much, like, in one episode, they get this entire backstory, this depth to them, this whole layers, all of these, like, just details and stuff that are totally extraneous because in 35 minutes, you're never going to see this guy ever again.
Yep.
And it's like, how much work did they put into making these character designs, these fighting styles, this whole thing for just one half of an episode or whatever?
And I love the world building of characters like Giran too, because like how in some of the crowd shots you'll see in this, like, there's just a bear talking. Like, it's just, or you ask yourself, like, what is this world? As we know later in Dragon Ball, the president of the world in Dragon Ball is a dog man.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
He's a blue dog man.
There are no rules as to who is like a sentient creature. Just like anything
there's
goes.
Like no racism in Dragon Ball world. They're just, you're sentient, good enough. Let's go.
Yeah. But sometimes they're just like, yeah, it's a dinosaur. Duh, we got dinosaurs.
It's one step below Dr. Slump where the sun is not alive, but that's about it. The sun is not alive in a character, but everything else is.
Yamcha prevents Giran from like killing a man, and Yamcha's asking for another ass kicking he's already had in this tournament to prove how tough some guy is. Yamcha almost breaks his leg kicking Giran, which is that a tease of the leg break he will get in the next martial arts tournament? I wonder. No, it's not intentional, I'm sure. But I also like when you know that Jackie is Muten Roshi, like also obviously Jackie Chun, that's a Jackie Chan reference stuff. But when you know he's Muten Roshi, the things Jackie does, he plays them off as like, oh, I'm just a non-interested party, but he's teaching through action. And that is included here where he's like reminding Goku, like, don't get in a stupid bar fight, fight in the tournament. Isn't that what you're here for?
Yeah, you're going to get disqualified if you fight outside.
I like that there are rules though. It's like you can't kill your opponent, you can't like attack their crotch or whatever.
Yeah.
Like it's not like anything goes, murder fest.
In a couple episodes after this, when they think that Jackie has used the Kamehameha wave to murder the giant monkey Goku, nobody's celebrating. They're all yelling at him like you would if you went to a UFC fight and saw a person kill another person. You'd be like, you don't have to do that. You're a killer. You're a murderer. Arrest him. Like that's how they're shouting at Jackie when they think he's killed Goku.
Before we get past this scene, though, I just love how Giran is such a Wild West. Like he's got this scene where he's like scratching himself as Yamcha's talking to him, trying to be all tough and whatever. He's like, man, whenever a goody two shoes shows up, I get all itchy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that is such a Wild West, like, saloon villain right there. Oh, I loved it.
Yeah, it's he's like itchy, itchy, itchy. It's when a goody two shoes gets in my way.
My rash only goes away when I pound one.
Yeah, I love it. I love that. It's so clever.
This is 10 times the personality he had on the page. Like, yeah, the writer, like, they found so much more to do with Gira in here. Like, it's almost a waste. He was a one-off in the comic page, though not in the series. But I'll get to that.
Comes back quite
later.
a bit.
Yeah,
and then we get the eye catch, which I love because I love the two different versions you get is like Goku expertly spinning the umbrella with the balls bouncing on top, and I love the animation of Oolong doing it poorly with his tongue hanging out of his mouth.
they just all fall off, every single one
because he's not spinning it fast enough.
The beauty of an eye catch. I love a classic 80s eye catch. The cuteness of them, the like kind of 4-panel comic strip feel to them.
Yes.
And how they have to express a joke in like 10 seconds. It's great. On the newest or in the 100th episode of Steven Universe, they gave themselves an eye catch.
Aw,
and like
they've earned it.
OKKO did some eye catches. It was always fun to see tributes to that stuff. So they're back from commercial break with the eye catch, and this is where it is 1-to-1 with the comic pretty much entirely. Like I was watching it on the big screen in my living room and had the Shonen Jump app open on my phone. And I was just paging through like, yep, panel. Like this pages are so good by Toriyama. I don't blame the storyboarders from just going like, we've got it right here. Like, let's just board this out as it's drawn on the page.
And you really get to see Toriyama's skill in this because of just how detailed the crowd shots are, how detailed the arena is. It's such a vivid and beautiful. I mean, the first Tenkaichi Budokai is one of the most like beautiful set pieces in Dragon Ball.
It really, yeah. And he draws in like Dragon Quest nemesises in the backgrounds even too. Back when people weren't watching as closely, or he'll draw in like, oh yeah, this is a famous pro wrestler here. Like Andre the Giant is a competitor in the second Tenkaichi prelims. Goku, he's not there in time for the start. Giran, being a classic bad guy wrestler, he's like, hey, he forfeits. Call the match for me. Then we get to see that cute little sleepyhead Goku just took a little nap. Oh, I love that. It's so funny. And they even, in the cartoon, keep in the very Charlie Brown comic panel reactions of like the reaction of
the feet going up.
Yeah.
That's a device they use a lot in Dragon Ball. Just like feet going up in the air, like one frame.
Here you can hear the sound effect in this clip of Goku apologizing to the audience.
Boom. It's very broad.
But I mean, that's Toriyama's comedy is incredibly broad comedy.
But the thing I love is like the scene immediately after that, where the announcer's like, all right, let's begin. You see them still in their frozen upside down pose, immediately flip back over and go, like, all right, let's do this.
There's so many great just comedy of instant reactions, which I think they emulate how funny it is in reading a panel of going panel to panel and characters like go through instant reaction change. And like when even though in the stuff they made up in the animation side, when the rain starts in the episode, how like Bulma and Oolong and Puar, they're watching from the audience like, yay, yay. And then the second the rain starts, their faces just go, bleh, like just in an instant. No, in between. I love that. The fight begins, and here's Goku, ever trusting, is asked to look at something in Giran's hand.
Those sound effects.
How much poor Nozawa has to scream, though? I do feel a little bad for her.
Well, she was still doing it with Super.
Yeah, I think she's still, all the time she says Kamehameha, like you think she'd be like, you got it saved.
They've got to have like a Kamehameha wave floating around in Toei by now.
Man, that was my opening for Windows 3.1. One of the things here is that Goku is such an innocent doofus, and he walks up exactly the way my 6-year-old son does, because he's like, he's got no idea. There's something in your hand. He doesn't understand that this is a trick being played on him, because the idea that somebody would trick him doesn't exist. And Giran is just like, he plays off that in this fight so much, of just taking Goku's age or mental age or representative age and just using it against him. It's silly.
It's something I really like in the arc that follows this in Red Ribbon, where like those guys are also mean, and it takes Goku like being like literally shot in the back a few times before he finally goes like, you guys are bad. I shouldn't trust you. It's you get to see Goku slowly learn just a little bit over time.
He's become slightly jaded.
Ever so slightly. I mean, for the entirety of regular Dragon Ball, he doesn't know he turns into a giant ape, and he doesn't know he killed his own grandfather, But yes, in this case, Goku is so trusting. He gets a big old tail whip. Giran thinks he's won, and then Goku just like hops back up instantly. He's like, hey, that kind of hurt. Yeah, and then Giran's like, oh crap. Goku then does such a cool combo, just like 3 punches, and then hops over him with like a somersault and then flings him. Oh, so cool.
It's a very nice fling. It's like a so long K Bowser kind of throw.
Yeah.
That's one of the things, though, that always got me about the Tenkaichi Budokais is that these, like, you look at this arena, the arena is very much based off of a sumo wrestling dohyo, right? Like one of the big, just round rings, and the whole like rule of the thing is if you get knocked out or if you touch outside the ring, you lose, which is like sumo wrestling.
Yeah.
But it's so weird because like half the characters can fly or have wings, or like Goku has his cloud that he can fly around on, and it just feels like the rules are just so easily manipulated. And yet, if 1 inch of your tail touches the ground, that is it for you.
Yeah, the covers they have for it just as a random ass excuse that that Toriyama can be like, oh, this is why he lost here. Like the heartbreaker of a way Goku loses the next tournament of him and Tien falling at the exact same time. But Goku, I believe, hits a car first. So Tien hits a car, Goku hits the ground, and because he hit the ground, he is the loser. Or though it comes back to help Goku, like Goku defeats Piccolo thanks to a ridiculous ring out as well, which Piccolo very nicely respects instead of like killing everybody. And also, I think of that ring out as like, it must have inspired so many 3D fighting games too.
I was just thinking of Virtua Fighter
100%.
the entire time.
Yeah, I mean, also, you're right. That's already the rule in sumo. So I could see the developers of Virtua Fighter going like, yeah, in sumo, it's a ring out.
Also, we have 3 polygons. We can't make the space very big.
Yeah, also true.
So Goku comes and knocks Giran out, right? He does that 3-hit combo. Giran starts flying away. But whoops, he's got wings, and he comes back because he's not going to get knocked out so early because we've still got 20 minutes left of the episode or whatever. But then he decides to pull out this magical move of just like, spitting on Son Goku, which is such a Toriyama thing. He uses this kind of like Godzilla-like laser that ends up being the guru guru rings. And guru guru, obviously the Japanese sound effect for circle. And he basically sticks Goku in these inflatable lifesavers that are bright purple and like constrict him.
Which is not illegal because they came from his body.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, dude, I don't want to know the rule setup that bodily fluid spitting is okay. But I mean, when you got a big dragon fighting against a monkey, dude, I guess all bets are off.
That's true. Yeah, I guess if he spit fire as a dragon, that would be legal too, because he can do it. It wouldn't count as a. But then again, shouldn't his horn count as a? Like, you couldn't walk in with like a sword or like armor, but he's got to be. I don't know this. Well, I mean, the officiants, that dog officiant who's just there the whole time.
He goes woof.
That's one of my favorite Okay, in Japanese, I don't think he makes any noise. I don't recall it, but in
in
English,
Japanese he goes wan.
Oh, okay,
like the
all
dog
right.
barking noise.
And it just made me laugh more hearing it in English where he goes.
Yeah, he's just there. He's just like, yo, man, my job is to adjudicate. I'm just a dog.
Does he know the dog president?
And the dogs are all working together. They're in charge. No, I'm kidding.
It's a great dog conspiracy.
But something that's really funny too, right before the Guru Guru Gum comes out, which that reminds me of a One Piece thing for sure.
Definitely, yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%.
There's definitely someone who does something like this.
But right before Goku gets entrapped, he says that he couldn't ring out Giran. He then says, "I'm going to make you say Uncle Maita," I believe is the Japanese word there, which Giran will say when he gives up at the end of the episode. But I also love the 80s glow of the special effects when the gum gets around
it's like they're warping in from Star Trek or whatever.
It looked like somebody took a picture of the foil that you used to have, the foily kind of stickers that you would get out of gumball machines, and used that as the effect.
Like shined a light on it, yeah.
With like the weird holographic kind of like circles and stuff in there. It was pretty neat.
And Goku also in a very childish way is just like, that's not fair. Like, because all Goku wants is direct combat with another person and to see who's stronger, because he just loves fighting. Not hurting people, but just fighting. He just can't stop. He would rather not like murder Vegeta than have another fight with him in the future. And or Piccolo too, all those guys. And same
he's driven
here.
by the sense of fairness and of like clean fighting, and that's like one of the just hallmarks of what it is to be Goku, right? Like he's always going to like, he'll try to kick the crap out of you, but he's going to do it on even footing no matter what.
I love when the other characters tell him, like, what are you doing? Stop
Sometimes
this."
he's too fair.
Yeah, I mean, this is Z talk, but giving a senzu bean to Cell, when he's going to kill every human on Earth, maybe don't do that, Goku.
Yeah, like, just accept that he's going to get beaten and move on.
Oh, well. But in this case, he's just mad that Giran locked him up and he can't actually fight. And I also like the way he punches Goku's head is more like a scolding, like, boom, you dumb kid. And he's going to throw him out of the ring, and not just out of the ring, but out of the state.
To some other city.
Oh, yeah. He just like lobs this guy to like the moon. And it's just this amazing, like very classic 80s Team Rocket is flying off again type of just catapult into the sun. And Goku's like, what do I do? What do I do? And then he remembers that Toriyama gave him once upon a time the yellow cloud that lets him fly around, just like Sun Wukong, that shows up once in a while when needed for the plot.
That felt like Toriyama also remembering it. Like, oh, right, he's got one of those.
It's like, oh, wait, I can get out of this. Hey.
Yeah, I think Goku, even, at least in the comic, I think it is. I have the English, Japanese, and comic book in my head, so I can't keep it all straight. But I believe in the comic, at least, he says to him, like, oh, hey, I thought you'd be mad I hadn't seen you in a while, but thanks for saving me. And sometimes in English he's called Nimbus. Other times they just make it straight up Kintoin. Either way, I love the design of his little yellow cloud. It's so cute.
It's so very much like ukiyo-e style artwork, though very traditional Japanese classical waves of the way you see like the clouds kind of curvature upon itself.
Yeah, and the little like yellow line behind him from where he's flying around.
Oh yeah, man. It's like one of the most iconic images of Dragon Ball is Goku on that cloud with his big staff just floating behind him. And it's like he never uses it, but it's there, and it's like fundamental to his image, in my opinion.
Yeah, even once he's learned how to fly, they still use it in, the openings or in promotional art for Dragon Ball, because it's just a classic. It screams Dragon Ball. It means Dragon Ball to see a guy on a yellow cloud.
And there's something about like when in Dragon Ball Z you see Gohan on the Nimbus before he's learned how to fly, before he learns how to do anything, and it's like, oh look, that's nostalgic. That represents continuity of this character, and that we haven't forgotten where Goku came from. I don't know. I appreciated that.
Well, and the Goku, when he arrives back, he's saved, and Giran, again, like a bad guy wrestler, is like, hey, he broke the rules, disqualify him. And every character is telling, like, well, you cheated. That's him, Goku saying that is kind of cover for the audience, so they don't think Goku took the easy way out. That Goku says, like, well, you cheated like twice. You flew with your wings and you spit gum on me. Like,
yeah, it's funny. They're having this argument while Goku is still encircled by the Guru Guru gum. So he's still just like stuck. And he's like, but hello.
I guess technically Giran didn't cheat though, because he was working within that rule set.
Sure.
And then the ref is like, I guess you can just don't let it happen again. You only get to use the cloud once.
You get it once. Well, because that rule change too feels like an editor telling him, if you don't outlaw the use of the cloud, then why would any reader think Goku could ever get a ring out again? Because he'll always have the cloud to save him.
Oh yeah, so it was good to use the cloud once to show why you can't use it anymore.
Yes, yeah, and it's a good like self-restriction to put on as a storyteller of just like, I can use that cloud once as the get out of jail free card, but I can't use it again.
Yeah, it's a very, very clever. It's a very just like, because they know that the fans are going to be watching this and be like, why didn't he just use his, blah? It's like, okay, well, here, you can have the one. I don't know. I think it's really cool. I think it's such a neat little usage.
Later, even Kitoin, it explodes. Somebody blows it up, so Goku can't use it either in later episodes. Like when it would be very useful in chasing after Piccolo or the Red Ribbon. No, it's Red Ribbon Army that blows it up. Apologies. I'm so sorry.
Who killed the cloud, Henry?
Yeah, so it is decided that the cloud was able to be used once, but he'll be disqualified if he uses it again. And Giran decides, like, well, great, that's fine. Then I'll just throw you out a second time and we're good. He's going forward. He takes a swing, and this is one of the things that they didn't get in the show that was in the comic. The posing on all of it is exactly the same, but when he takes the big punch swing at Goku, in the comic, there is like an effects shot, like is in an impact hit splash over a certain area of his arm. And that you can tell yourself, like, oh, that's where Goku is. But in the animation, you don't, it's just nothing.
It's harder to do. You don't have those visual tools, I guess.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. It feels like one of the few misses in this episode, because I remember when I watched this episode again, I was like, wait, what happened? Where did he go? In the manga, when you see that, you're like, okay, I can at least have some indication that an impact happened at all. But I don't know how they would have done that in the anime. I mean, maybe they could have had some kind of sunburst effect or something, but it just felt like, it felt a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Immersion breaking. Like suddenly, like when he's showing up there in the next scene, and I'm just like, oh, it felt like a little weird, like a little too down tempo, I think.
Yeah.
It was a good time for his tail to grow back, though. So
pretty useful, yes. Yeah, that's
famously severed at the end of the last arc.
It's a real, literal pull out of his ass moment. I'm glad he got his tail back, because I think that is the iconic Goku is one with a tail, and for plot purposes, every Saiyan loses their tail at least once, and so it's more often you see them without it. But we talk about the Cloud, same with his monkey tail. That's the Sayuki roots of the character, and when you lose that, you lose a little bit of Goku there too. So him hanging off, it's also a very pro wrestling moment where Giran's like, what, where is he? And the audience is like, look there, look over there. And yes, he also, Goku gets a power up from having his tail.
It's almost like the Popeye music could start playing.
Yeah, it's
That's what
pretty
it felt
similar. Actually, yes, here's the little sound of them playing the theme song behind Goku as he practices with his newly reformed tail.
I do like the animation of him just bouncing and bouncing on his tail. You could just feel how free he is now.
Yeah, it's such a great drawing, straight off the page from Toriyama. The last bit of filler in this episode, though, so in the comic page, when Goku is going to bust out of the gum, it is one panel. It's within one panel. Panel 1, he is struggling against it. Panel 2, he's ripping it apart. In the show, it is 35 seconds of him going.
Hey, they really sold how sticky that gum was.
It's also foreshadowing the entirety of Dragon Ball Z right there.
Yes, yeah.
Grunting and
because
posing.
Dragon Ball, the whole gimmick is you're powering up. It's going to take 2 episodes to get there, so you might as well start now. But before we actually move off the tail, though, I actually had an anecdote I wanted to bring up.
Oh, sure.
One of the things about Goku's tail, which is Son Wukong's tail, which is Hanuman's tail, is that the tail itself of the divine monkey in these cultures is one of those like very important symbolic ideas throughout the entire like that Eastern sphere of like culture. Because like, for instance, in the Ramayana, the story that Hanuman comes from, that Sayuki borrows from, is that the Monkey King is going to find the princess who's been kidnapped by the demon. He goes off and flies across the ocean. The Demon King captures him and lights his tail on fire. And they're like, oh no, your tail is going to blow up. It's the source of your power. You're going to lose everything. And the Monkey King takes it and jumps off and jumps from roof to roof and sets the entire town of the evil demon on fire before extinguishing his tail, just to say like, look, man, you may have lit my tail on fire, but my tail is still stronger than all of you. And so like when you see in Dragon Ball, for instance, he's got the tail, he looks at the moon, he turns into the giant monkey. Whenever he's got the tail, before he goes Super Saiyan, his full power is unlocked. When they cut off his tail, they do it specifically to handicap Goku to make him less destructive and damaging. And that is a straight line going all the way back to the original Indian roots of the story, which always like in this scene when he's like, my tail is back and suddenly I've got strength again, is literally right out of, in the Ramayana, the Monkey King is not, he reaches the ocean at the end of South India. It's like, well, I don't know what to do. I can't find the princess and she's got to be somewhere over there. And someone's like, by the way, you used to be the son of a god. And he's like, what? And suddenly, Super Saiyan.
Wow. Damn.
So this whole kind of like gimmick throwaway arc here is straight lineage going back to the source of these
Awesome.
stories.
Wow.
Damn,
I would not have known this.
Man,
It's one of the things that always tickles me.
well, though, I know a lot about Superman, though. And but seriously, though, the pose of Goku busting out of the gum, that is like clearly inspired reference to a very famous Superman drawing by Neil Adams of him busting out of chains.
I think I even have seen that before.
Yeah, and I mean, we know Toriyama, a big Superman fan.
Yeah. His origin story would be just Superman.
Yes, yeah. After the fact.
His retconned origin story.
Retconned one. And we all know Super Saiyan Man, but I'm breaking my own no Z rule.
And
here.
Suppaman from Dr. Slump.
Oh, right. Yeah. Good old Suppaman.
Oh, man.
But yes, the him practicing balancing on his tail is so cute. And and that great hiya in that clip there of Nozawa, she makes the sound of Goku kicking through the wall. And Giran does, he's a smart guy. He knows all the rules and he also knows when he's beaten. So he's like, why get beaten up for no good reason? I give up. Like, he just goes like, Maita.
I think after
he's like, look, man, that was my trick. And you just broke my trick. I don't know what to do now.
I think after seeing Goku smash the entire wall and not get hurt, he's like, okay, I can't do anything.
Yeah. and he said uncle just like Goku said he would, but Goku didn't expect it there, so Goku even has the comedy reaction like, kaboing! So the fight is over, and then also for just a slight amount more of filler at the end, the camera pans up for no reason to just like a plane flying through
Also,
the sky.
everyone that knows Goku is horrified that his tail's back. They're
That's
like, oh
great.
shit.
Yeah. They know, like that's so great because that will be an incredibly important part of the final battle of this tournament. And which also leads to such a funny moment too, where once Goku is defeated, he wakes up naked and he's like, "Oh, why am I naked?" And they're like, "You don't know?" He's like, "What? whatever. And then he tries to just resume the fight, and the announcer's like, please put on clothes. This is uncomfortable. He's like, oh, really? All right.
We've all seen your doodle.
Goku, again, part of his, innocence / stupidity, he has no sense of modesty. He's like, yeah, I'm going to fight naked. Let's get this fight going. That's the end of that episode, though, as apparently the anime team must have been real fans of both Giran and Nam, because the filler arc that would directly follow the tournament would be about how creating an entirely new storyline where the drought in Nam City is caused by Giran and Giran's people plugging up the water supply. And so it's about Goku defeating Giran and his family once again and getting the water to return to Nam's people.
And I don't know if you know the pun there, but Nam in Japanese, Namu, is the first phrase in, Namu Amida Butsu, which is the famous, Buddhist chant.
I did not realize that.
The Chinese chant for Buddhism of in the name of the Buddha Amida. So it's like one of those, again, yeah, he's a religious monk dude. Here we're even going to give him the it's like naming a Christian monk something like Jesus says
Our Father,
Sister Rosary,
or Holy Name.
I now I want to watch. I just skipped those fillers, but now that I've watched this and seen the cool filler they made up for Giran in this episode, I kind of just want to see more adventures of Giran.
I'm going to go through the rest and watch the filler because I like what they do.
And it ends with the ending theme, Romantic Ageru Yo, sung by Ushio Hashimoto. And I just love it. It's like, it's like an 80s ballad,
Bulma staring in the rain, having some me time.
Going to planes. I love the little one-off drawings of her and her German army adjacent outfit at the plane is so strange.
I've watched thousands of hours of Dragon Ball. I've never once seen the ending credits.
Really? Okay. Do it at least once.
Fast forward to the next one.
Do it at least once.
It's a really great song, but yeah, I understand wanting to. Well, we've all never been in the situation that the original broadcast audience had of time to wait another week for my episode.
God,
of
I couldn't imagine.
That was just awesome to go back to early Dragon Ball. One of my favorite arcs, the every martial arts tournament are my favorites, and to also look into how this was a great episode picked by L, our awesome patron. Thank you, because this is both incredibly true to the comic pages, except when it isn't, and they made up a bunch of filler that was also really cool.
Mm-hmm. When you had proposed this to me, I was like, I didn't even remember this episode. I mean, I the Tenkaichi episodes are kind of all blur in my mind. I was like, oh, we'll do the episode where Goku learns how to do the Kamehameha. That's iconic. Or where he's fighting against the against Yama, the king of the underworld, to get his wife. But this is a fantastic episode. It was just such a cool little, lots of little nuances, and it just really showed off Toriyama's skill.
Super watchable. It goes by really fast. I've been binging on these. I started from the beginning of the tournament arc before I did research for this one. I think I'm just going to do the rest of the series because
it's just fun, man.
As of this recording, there's lots of time for that. So and it's on Funimation. I think it's on Hulu too.
Yep.
And of course there are DVDs and Blu-rays and whatnot. So it's all just there waiting for you. So Shivam, thanks for joining us so much on this podcast. Can you please plug what you're working on now, where we can find you online, all that good stuff?
Oh, absolutely. So I host my own podcast of Magic the Gathering, and it's called Casual Magic. It comes out every Tuesday, and I talk about whatever I feel like talking about in the realm of Magic the Gathering from a casual perspective. And you can find me on Twitter at Electrotal, ELEKTROTAL, or from my previous episodes of Talking Simpsons. Right now, otherwise, what I'm working on is the four walls of my house where I live all the time forever.
Well, nice.
Hopefully that'll change.
Yeah. But thank you so much. And certainly when it comes time for Dragon Ball Z, I have a feeling you'll be back.
We know who to call.
Oh, I hope so. I got a lot to say.
So thanks so much to Shivan for being on the show, and thanks again to Elle for being one of our high-level patrons. And if you want to be one of our patrons and get access to the show 1 week at a time and ad-free, please go to Patreon patreon.com/talkingsimpsons. And if you sign up for $5 a month, you'll get just that, but also access to everything behind the $5 paywall. That includes all the extra content we've made behind that paywall for nearly 3 years now. But the most recent thing we've done and are still rolling out is Talking Mission Hill, our Talking Simpsons style exploration of the animated series Mission Hill, and that's available only for $5 patrons. There's probably 100 plus bonus episodes behind that $5 paywall, and if you sign up, you get access to them immediately. But Henry can tell everyone out there what's happening at the $10 level, which is one super long podcast every month that's voted on by patrons.
That's right. That's the What a Cartoon Movie podcast. For $10 and up, folks, they get to hear the full, often 4 hours and longer, What a Cartoon Movie, where we talk about a different animated feature film once a month. And you get to hear the extended preview of it in this feed on the free feed. Last month, we did the anime classic, The Castle of Cagliostro. This month, it's going to be Toy Story 2 to continue our trip through the Toy Story series. And you will get to hear the full thing and all of the previous episodes, over 60 hours of premium podcasts, if you sign up at the $10 level at patreon.com/talkingsimpsons.
So I've been one of your hosts, Bob Mackey. You can find me on Twitter as Bob Servo. My other podcast is Retronauts, a classic gaming podcast. Find it wherever you find podcasts or go to patreon.com/retronauts and sign up there for 2 exclusive episodes every month on top of the 4 we bring you on the free feed. Again, that's patreon.com/retronauts.
Hey, and you can follow me, Henry Gilbert, on Twitter at HENEREYG. I have tons of fun updates on there. I've been tweeting out a lot of Dragon Ball related stuff because it's been fun to go back through it. And if you want to follow the official Twitter account of this podcast and its sister podcast, on Twitter, follow at Talk Simpsons Pod. That's at Talk Simpsons Pod for all the updates on when podcasts go live, on the free feed, on the Patreon, and when we've got cool stuff coming your way. So check that out one more time at Talk Simpsons Pod.
Thanks so much for joining us, folks. We'll see you next week for Justice League, and the episode is Injustice for All, Part 2. And we'll see you then.
じゃがピンチはまだまだ続くぞい。
ただいま。